Blackwell, president of the Washington County Historical Society, and on this day we are in Millry, Alabama to do the history of the city and the surrounding area of Millry in 1997.
First, I'd like to say we're indeed privileged to have everyone come to Millry with the Historical Society of Washington County, and invite you to come visit us at any time that you will. You're always welcome, and our facilities certainly at your disposal and discretion. Back to the history of Millry. Millry has been here for several years, and I researched the history, and the name of Millry County has 2 or 3 meanings as I've looked. But I think the one that's the consensus is it was because of the various mills, such as sawmills, grist mills, cotton mills, and so forth, cotton gins. That's where the name came from. I don't know. But anyway, as far as the town, the incorporated town, the first mayor of Millry, the town of Millry, was John Wood. And John had a son named J. Emmett Wood. And he has a daughter that still lives in this town in Semifel, which we could have of him. And then the second one was Sam Reynolds. And then the third mayor of Millry was Clark Carpenter. Mr. Carpenter now has a grandson who's a councilman on the town council that's sitting now. And then after Mr. Carpenter was Jesse Lambert. And Jesse, of course, was at one point on the Gulf Transport Bus Company, which ran from, I suppose, York to Mobile. But and he was the mayor. And then after Jesse came Robert Lee Dearman. And Robert Lee had a inherited kidney disease and died before his term was finished. And then there was an appointed gentleman named Albie Forrest. Albie came to us as a railroad worker from Missouri. And then after Albie served a short period of time, and then Charles Martin was elected, and he stayed several terms, and then Mr. Harold Hartley was appointed for a period of time, and then I'm the new guy on the block as of October of last year, and I'm the second Dearman. County history repeats itself. Maybe we can fill the shoes.
Who are you?
Some of these.
Give your name.
I'm Pete Dearman, Frank Pete Dearman. I was raised in Millry community in Dearman Fort. Millry was full of Dearmans, but mine was never quite rich enough to get to town, and by default I kind of got here. So, but we're certainly proud to be associated with all the fine people of Millry. And Millry, as I was a kid, was full of stores, was full of, we had the doctor, and in fact, the business, I was born in Dearman Fort, and Dr. Blunt was the physician, it was Marion's father that had filled this position of prenatal care. But then he happened to be out of town, going to Hot Springs, Arkansas, so Dr. Kimber had to come from Chatham when I was born. So I was born in Dearman Fort and was raised and educated all 12 years in Millry, high school years. And all the 12 years that I was at Millry, Mr. Theodore Pearson, who is with us, was the superintendent of education. In fact, I think 1965 was the last year that he signed diplomas, and he signed mine. And then I was later elected to the board, and for 6 years I was chairman, and I signed them, so that kind of has some meaning to us. But we have been just fortunate to have been a part of Millry and to have been associated. And we're looking for history to repeat itself. Millry was once a blooming, growing town, and we're looking for that again. I'm not giving you the spiel here, but I was seeing M.L. Mitchell a little earlier, and going back to my dad, I was talking sometime earlier, and Mr. Mitchell probably can tell us what year, but I think him and my dad did some boxing here. The first one,
Right here.
right here.
He hit me so hard, my feet went up in the air.
But the J. Emmett Wood that was later the state representative got together some boys when fighting and boxing became popular, and he decided to start one in Millry. So my dad was a participant. And Mr. Mitchell is still with us, and he was. And Mr. Betty Lockhart, and Hopswat, that's the 4 names that I was remembering. That was the first in Millry. It's kind of faded out a little bit, but there's been a lot of firsts here. And it's just so wonderful. And in this particular building meets the nutrition center people each day, which have a lot of our elderly people. We're blessed to still have many of them, loving, kind people. And as a good tourist event for the town, the Browns had given us the Brown House across the street. We're in the process of having this renovated at current and raising funds and so forth. So hopefully we can invite you back and we can all meet in the probably 140-year-old Brown House at some point with the Historical Society again. Again, thanks for coming, and we're always on your side and going. God bless you.
I'm James Ford. I'm a native of Grenada, Mississippi. I was educated and finished high school in Grenada, Mississippi. I attended and graduated from Mississippi State University in 1955 School of Engineering. My family and myself have been engaged in the lumber business all of my adult life and my father's life before me. My forefathers came to this country around the turn of the century from Scotland. And as I say, we have always been engaged in the lumber business. My business, Millry Mill Company, succeeded Hill Lumber Company, who had just a drastic fire in 1984. And that family decided not to rebuild and re-engage themselves in the lumber manufacturing business. I was at the time working for Scott Paper Company. I was in charge of their sawmills all over the world. Nova Scotia, out in the state of Washington, out over in South Carolina, and in Australia, and of course the mill at Mount Vernon, Alabama. And at the time, we were in a program at Scott Paper Company to determine if, in fact, we needed to continue in the lumber manufacturing business. And I recommended to top management with Scott that we get out of the lumber business, except in Australia, where the chips were necessary for the paper production in Australia, and in Nova Scotia, where the chips were necessary for the paper mill in Nova Scotia. I had known Son Hill back in the 60s when he and his father came to Laurel, Mississippi and bought some equipment from the business that I was managing. I heard that they were not going to re-engage themselves. I met with Son and he said, well, no, we're not. And he and I negotiated my buying the Hill Lumber Company from the Hill family. We rebuilt the sawmill and have been engaged in the business here in Millry since that time. With the help of God and a lot of luck, we've been very, very successful. There's something that probably none of you except for Son know. We manufacture and ship grade lumber all over the world. We have shipped lumber to South Africa, the Canary Islands, Europe, the Caribbean Basin. We're now embarking on shipping lumber into Japan. And we think we have been very successful in this venture. The Japanese people are very specific in what they want, and if you can supply what they want, price really doesn't enter into the negotiation with them if you can give them what they want. We also found this to be true in Europe. Now, a little about Millry Mill Company. I think, and I think Son would amen this, we're a small business, but we're on the cutting edge of technology in the lumber industry. We make all of our sawing resolutions with a computer, and we do those things that other big people in the industry do. We're just as efficient as they are, except that we have a little more labor intensity because we are in a special business. We don't make the same thing that Hood Lumber Company in Waynesboro makes because we can't compete with them, very frankly. But what we do make, we can compete with Mr. Anybody because the sizes and the specifications and the quality that go into our products will sell anywhere. where people need a quality product to use in the remanufacturing process to make windows, doors, and other types of millwork. We ship lumber into the Caribbean Basin, and believe it or not, those people are about 30 to 35 years behind us in their building techniques. They still use sheet metal on the roof, like we used here when we were growing up, and they use vertical siding on the exterior, board and batten, like we used here many years ago. You know, you're seeing a lot of barns, a lot of cotton bins and houses and that sort of thing with vertical board and batten siding. Those people still employ these practices. They still use paneling inside. They still use pine flooring on the floors. So this is a very attractive market for us. We're capable of doing these things and feel that we have as good a name as you'll find in the industry from a standpoint of reliability and quality. We procure the timber for our mill in Washington County, Clark County, Mobile County, Wayne County, Perry County, Clark County, over in Mississippi. And we have a very good procurement network, and we think that there's a place for what we do. We employ 50 people. We have an annual payroll in excess of $1 million. We put over $6 million in the economy of Washington County in either labor, the purchase of raw materials, the purchase of supplies, the purchase of goods and services that are necessary to operate our facility. Another little thing that you might not know, we make 21% of our own electricity out of the wood waste that is developed in the process of sawing. We dry our lumber with steam that's generated from the wood waste that develops in the process of sawing. That's about all I've got to say. I'll say we have a business of which we're all proud. We have a lot of good young people who care about what they do, and we're trying to grow on this every day. I would ask if any of you have any questions about Millry Mill Company or about myself.
You've also provided some educational opportunities for your employees, haven't you?
Yes. The Washington County Library last year began a remedial reading program. We were the first participant in this program. And I got to tell you, you find a person that can't read and can't write, you just be surprised how much it enhances their personality. I'm serious about this, people. To how they dress, to how they conduct themselves when they learn how to read and write. A lot of us take reading and writing for granted. But if you can, and then you suddenly can, it makes a big difference in your life.
Any questions?
Son, you got anything that you'd like to add?
Who you are?
Personally, I was born in Walnut, Alabama, December 15, 1904. Graduated from Chatham High, from Washington County High School at Chatham, and Birmingham Southern College, and then Birmingham. And as Mayor Dillon said, I served as superintendent of pleasure of the people of Washington County for 33 years. Since then, I haven't been doing anything much. In fact, I think my success, if I had any, well, my success was I was re-elected several times. I didn't try to do too much. And I want to share a joke with you, that a story that really impressed my wife and I really the other day. Cattleman's meeting in Birmingham. Seemed like this 100-year-old man was getting married. And his friend said to him, "You're 100 years old and getting married, you must love a woman very much." "No, I don't care anything about it." Said, "Well, if you don't love her, she must have a lot of money." "No, she don't have any money." "Well, you're 100 years old and getting married, you don't love a woman, she doesn't have while you're married, she can drive at night. And I do have here a petition that I'd like for you, if you care to sign it when you have time. It's directed to our representative, Senator. Over at St. Stephen's, we have.
I am M.L. Mitchell, born and raised over here in Quentin. And stayed over there, I don't know, till I was about 89 years old. And we moved down here, just a little piece down the road, what they call a hilltop. And we worked for Mr. E.L. Jury, 10 times. And we stayed there, I don't know, about three years. Then we moved from down there over here to where the lake is, over the Gila Spring. And there we moved over there on a farm to Mr. Lee Anderson. Well, we stayed over there about 20 years, I imagine. So I left, I was about 20 years old. And I went to work up here in Cullenbury. And I walked from over there where the lake is to Cullenbury, to Alaska, J.W. Alaska Sawmill. Well, I stayed up there about a year and a half. So I decided I'd try something else. And I think I went to work for Mr. Melvin Brown. I think I did. Anyway,
You went to work for Melvin in the telephone system. And that was down in Franklin, I believe, wasn't it?
that's where he bought out Mr.
Bought
Nash
out.
Johnson.
Franklin.
Bought out who?
Mr. Nash Johnson.
What year was this, you think?
Well, I don't know. In other words, really, this, I didn't really understand it until it was just too late.
Early 40s.
Yeah. Well,
Oh, that's a war.
Yeah, it was after I
World War
passed
II.
school, I know.
Probably about 46 or 47.
Then you went to work for Melvin, right?
yes, go ahead and read it.
Okay. The first was, I was one of the first black men to help in the Millry telephone system. The first was ringer type. This system lasted about 5 years. Then they changed to the dial system. The owner and manager was Mr. Melvin Brown. He used to say, this system will grow bigger and bigger, and it has continued to grow under the expansion of Mr. Paul and Darrell Brown. Mr. Percy Norton was the #1 man when I worked with the telephone company. He had 1 truck and 1 Jeep. The company operated a large number of trucks and other equipment now.
Thank you. Well, I see many faces in here that I know, and then there's a lot of them in here know me. Well, I didn't know Mr. Pearson for quite a while, but I remember him now. Do you know me, Mr. Pearson? M.L. Mitchell? Yeah, okay. Well, I know them two down there, Mr. Booth, one, the other man. Then right on across, it's several of them I know, and they know me. And I'm not ashamed for none of them to say something about me. You know, my conduct. Yeah. And I believe if I was, of course I ain't intend to go to jail. I'm too
Mr.
good
Mitchell.
to go to jail.
What year did you help move the telephone company to Millry?
Well, yes, I did. I hope move it from over there to Millry. Then I hope put it up.
And what year was that?
I really don't know.
I believe that was 1946.
46. Okay.
Well, what kin are you to Riley Mitchell?
Well, that was my granddad. Yeah, Willie Mitchell was my dad. Yeah.
Wayne,
I'm Pete Cohen. I was born and raised here in Millry, and this was a delightful place to grow up. We didn't know it at that time, but there was 7 stores in Millry at one time, not a paved road and not a street light. And my grandmother lived up on the corner there, and everybody knew Aunt Susie Cohen. And you could hear her laugh all over Millry. If somebody would say, somebody's tickled Aunt Susie, because they could hear her in every store in town. And they used to have an old hotel up there about where the cafe is now, where the, what's the name of that cafe?
Catfish.
Junior
store down the
hall. Where the Junior Catfish place, big old 2-story building. And then the railroad, they had a special train on Sunday. One come in from York and one come in from Mobile. And they met here on Sunday, and everybody went to Healing Springs and had lunch. They swam, they took walks, and then the trains went back to Mobile and York that afternoon, late. And we had a doodle bug that run every day from York to Millry. And right down there by the Hills old house, they had the turnaround. And they'd push that doodle bug out on that thing and turn it around and head it back to York. And it come down every morning and went back every afternoon. And it carried passengers, but the main reason is it carried the mail. And I was always under the impression that Millry got its name from Mill Creek. I've never heard anybody else say that, I don't think. But I thought that was where it got its name, because of the creek and the old mill pond they had to run the grits mill and all. And
What time period was it that the train came and did the turnaround, had the turnaround?
that was back in the early 30s, back during the Depression. You wouldn't think people could get up enough money to get a ticket down here then. They did. And I remember the sign in the depot, it says, travel on the railroad, 2 cents a mile. And that's what it costs for a ticket to go to Mobile. And I think it was a round trip, 2 cents a mile. And Mr. Tom Chucker was a depot agent. And he must have been one of the best men that ever lived, because every kid in town run through that depot, that they did everything. And we would go in and get straight pins out of his catch and take them out and lay them on the railroad track and cross them. And the train run over them and make a pair of scissors out of them. Of course, they didn't work, but actually press them together and they'd stay that way. And another thing, we were talking about not too long ago about when the train would come in at night, and we'd get up here ahead of it, and our shadow would be cast at least 5 blocks. And you could take your hand and move it over to this house over here, you know, and you think you was going to pick it up. Oh.
How about greasing the tracks?
Huh?
About you greasing the tracks? You grease the
The
tracks.
what?
You grease the tracks.
Oh, yeah. Oh, and at the schoolhouse when the train would come, Norman Brown and Boog, Billy, and Jack, and all a whole bunch of us. We'd take bar soap, cut it in little thin pieces, and lay it on the track. And the train, it was a pretty good grade going up to the school, and the train would start puffing and puffing up there, and it hit that soap. You could hear it spinning a mile.
When did they pave the streets in Millry?
There wasn't a paved street in Millry till after the war, wasn't it? And just before World War II, they paved the highway. And I can remember when there wasn't a paved road in Washington County. And everywhere you went on dirt. And when we got to Mount Vernon and hit pavement going to Mobile, oh man, we thought we had gone to heaven. And another thing was, every time somebody would say, I went to Mobile yesterday, everybody would say, how many flats do you have? That was a standard question. You never went to Mobile without having at least 2 or 3 flats.
How long did it take you to get from Millry to Mobile then?
All about 4 hours. And if you had everything worked good, and you didn't have too many flats.
The creeks didn't get up.
Huh?
And the creeks didn't get up.
Yeah, the creeks didn't get up.
And you left way before daylight.
Dr. Blunt come down and spent an afternoon with Betty and I one afternoon, and he was telling us about somebody come in from Seasesh. Now that's a place you never hear of anymore, but it was up around Bladen Springs, someplace up there. And there was a big mill there. And he had to go see a patient up there. So he got his horse and buggy and he took off to Seasesh. And he said it was raining cats and dogs when he left. And when he come back, he had to come through by Mount Carmel Church over there and come down to George Knight Hill and cross Briar Creek. Well, Briar Creek was a mile across. And he couldn't get across with a horse and buggy. So he went back up on top of the hill and he stayed a couple of days with Uncle George, who was my great uncle, Uncle George Knight. And Uncle George would say, "Bit," that was his daughter, "run down and check on the creek and see if Doc can get across." And my aunt would get on the horse and run down to the creek, come back, "No, he can't get across yet." And then finally she come back and said, "Yeah, he can make it now." So Dr. Blunt, he stepped his buggy and got back home. And he'd been gone about 4 days. And he asked Uncle George, says, "What I owe you?" And you know what he said? Nothing. That was a common courtesy that went on to everybody back in those days. And at night, you get out at night, you start walking, and no sidewalks, and no traffic either. So you didn't have to worry about cars, so you walked in the road. But you would feel somebody coming toward you, and you'd stop. You couldn't see, it was absolutely black. And then they didn't run into you, so you figured, well, I just missed that one, and you'd go on. And Book Warren and I hunted rabbits all over this country. There wasn't a pig trail or a cotton patch we didn't know about, was there? That's about all I got to say.
When did we get Millry's got 1 of 2 red lights in Washington County, and when was it put up?
That was after World War II. I remember we got a speed limit in Millry after World War II. And this boy was in my office and he says, "I saw the speed sign in Millry," and he said, "I shoved it to the floor." And guess who it was? Bobby Ware.
What about the electricity or?
Electricity come into Millry back in the 20s, late 20s or real early 30s.
Was it right in town, or did we have it outside?
No, they come in from State Line, Mississippi. They had 2 diesel generators over there. And if it fogged, the lights went out. But they come into Millry with electricity, and the base price was $1.50 a month, whether you used it or not. You paid $1.50. And they still had no street lights. It was just for homes. and most people just had it for lights. And, because I don't think they could have used any industry on it, because it was just too weak.
When did Millry get a water system?
Pardon?
When did we get a water system in Millry?
I don't really know when they got their water system. He's gonna have, I was gone when the water system come in.
Jesse Lambert was mayor.
I got bus fare out of Millry, and I left. And then I realized what a good place it was, so I moved back. That's about all I.
Night, and if there was a fire during the night, somebody would notify the watchman, and he would blow the whistle 3 times, and that meant there was a house fire in town. That'd wake everybody up.
And once in a while, we would have a severe cold snap, and it leaked, and it would run down, and it would get icicles this big, wouldn't it? Remember that icicle we went down there and took it up to Sidney Arms, James Martin's store. And Sidney says, "How much you want for that icicle?" We said, "You can have it. What do you want with it?" He said, "I want to put it in the ice box. We don't have any ice." So they chipped the icicle up and put it in the ice box. Light came in 1960, 59-60. And the first well was right behind us here. It was located where the old restaurant that, I don't know who all ran it. Grace Dearman, ran the restaurant, and then Connie Dearman and Wes Jones had a barber shop there at one point. But anyway, it's 1960, the year it became in service.
When did Millry get a police department? Do any of you know?
I guess.
Before in the 50s.
John Frost?
John Frost was the first one. He got killed in service here back in the 50s. Train Frost, his pictures up here, lived on 34 east of town here, was killed by a train in the 50s, and kind of mid-50s probably. And he was looking for an escaped prisoner. And there was a fertilizer storage bin next door, which Mr. Robert Anderson, which Miss Louise's brother had. And they stacked cross ties, which people hewed with the axe, with the broad axe, and they sold them, and they stacked them out with a railroad out here where they loaded them on a train. And he was looking in those ties for a prisoner, and drove back in front of the train and killed him. Daddy, along the year before, I think, that he killed him, blew up and killed him over by the post office over there. We had 3
Years.
Yeah, and then Robert Anderson had one over there.
Daddy had one behind the
Yeah,
lady
and
door,
Lee had
had
one.
store years.
Do y'all remember the old jail down here in front of where Uncle Johnny built his house?
They pulled it with a
Had oxen to pull the jail around to different towns on Saturday night. If anybody got into the hooch and got a little too much, they'd take them down and lock them up.
The summertime deal, though, cause you freeze to death, or what?
It had iron wheels on it, about that big around. And it was stripped iron. There was no getting out the weapon in there.
mark that in the prison camps when they left it.
Is that right? Well, it was down there in front of Mr. Kimber's house. Well, his house, that was turpentine still.
I'm Beatrice Brown Wimmerly. I was born in Coyington over here where M.L. was talking about, and incidentally M.L.'s grandfather worked for my father, so on. They were a good family of people. And I was born in 1914 over there at Coyington. And my father was Arthur Brown, and my mother was Beatrice Knight Brown. And we lived over there on the farm. My dad operated a mill business with a steam engine over there. And he had ground corn and cut lumber and cotton gin.
Who are your brothers and sisters?
I have the next sister to me was Arthur here. We lost her in 1990, lost Ryder. And the next child was my brother Norman. He's been spoken out here. We lost him 2 years ago. And this is the next sister over here, Belle. And then we had twin brothers and sisters, my mother's last children, Vince and Ernest. all these younger people remember them. And we lost Vincent in an automobile accident in 1974, I believe it was. And but we grew up around Thornton, and then we just had little one-teacher schools all around every little community had a school. When they started consolidating the school after they built Millry High School, it must have been in the mid-20s, I reckon, somewhere along there. Right, not too long after they built Chatham School, there wasn't a high school in Washington County. So, well, Dad wanted to get us out here where we could go to the school. I had gotten back to 6th grade over there at the little grammar school, and that was as far as I could go. So, they started to move to consolidate the schools, and you go to Michigan school, people, children, the whole country gets upset. Most of the people didn't want to consolidate. Some did. Some, had more education than others. But anyway, the first couple of years after I got out of 6th grade, I came out here and stayed with my daddy. There was a big family of the Henry Brown family. There was 12 children, 6 sons and 6 daughters. Uncle Fate, they spoke to him over here. My daddy was the 6th child. Uncle Fate was the eldest one. And Grandpa and Grandma moved here the year that Uncle Fate was born. It was in 1870 something, I think, or late 60s. I've forgotten what year it was. But anyway, I would come out here and I stayed with, Daddy had some sisters living out here, Aunt Mamie, Marvin Cole's mother, and Aunt Linda married Dr. Joe Gilblunt, the dentist. And I'd stay with some of them and Miss Warren up here. John Warren was one of the sisters. And they all lived out here, and I'd come and stay with them and go to school for a semester. And then when they finally got the consolidation over, the buses didn't run, the county was poor, and the buses only ran about 6 or 7 months. So that was the other 2 or 3 months that I would have to come out here and stay with some of the kinfolk to finish school. I finally finished high school in 1933, but long about then there was a depression and there was talk of closing the schools. And so good many from the Millry school went to other schools for the last semester. I went up to Stiles to finish high school, and I got stuck there and stayed. And I've been living there all these years, and I have 2 children. My son, Brandon, back here with me. My daughter, Rebecca, is a program director, a diaconal minister at Ocean Springs, Mississippi, St. Paul's United Methodist Church. But back to the beginning, Cointon was a pretty good little town at that time. They had a store there, and the mills that my daddy operated, and it was about the main payroll over there. But there was a couple of doctors there, Dr. Callier, who was married to McDowell from Lady Springs. And at that time, they spoke to the C-Stage Lumber Company. That was the name of the people who were Sessions that had the mill at Lady Springs. And our Jeff Sessions, who's in Washington now, is a descendant of that family. His mother was a turnist, and his grandfather was a doctor who lived at Lady Springs. Man, the sawmill man's son married her. And so then, but over the years, when our house burned in 1929 over at Cointon, our farm home, so Daddy had started building this big old 2-story house up here where Bill lives now, and it was not finished completely, but it was livable, and we moved out there. We didn't have anything left for what we all had on. Mother was home with the twin babies, and the house was practically falling in before she usually it was a fire, and traffic not being very much. By the time the alarm was made in the community, people got there, they just about lost everything. So we moved to Millry in 1929, and then that made 6 of Grandma and Grandpa's children lived at Millry. Uncle Faith and Uncle George, he lived in Texas, and the 3 girls, Isover and sister we called her Lane, and Miss Cohen and Aunt Linda, and Daddy. And the highway was cut out here. They kept talking about putting a highway out here. And that highway was cut in the late 20s. They came through here and just made a dirt road. It was just a gravel road for a good many years before they kept upgrading it. And it must have been in the late 30s, early 40s before we got any blacktop up here. And but before then, they had a cement road that came up to Calvert. When we had to go to Mobile, then everybody glad to get to Calvert. They had a good room from there and moved down then. And so the town grew, and all of these stores and everything. I remember when they were all here. They used to have an overflowing well and a little park down here in front of where the shopping center Millry had a big old store out there, and the town water was a pump, pitcher pump set out there inside the road, and everybody came along, that was water. A lot of people that lived around here, that's where they got their water. Well, any of y'all remember that old pitcher pump that used to be down there? But anyway, that was the water supply. And then the telephone company was at Franklin. Johnson's owned that, and Melvin took that from them and moved it in. So there was somebody here, there was a few phones around, and there was a Liz Holston, I believe it was, who had an exchange back up there. I lived close to the schoolhouse. If you want to call on the telephone, you had to go up there and call. We had people, Ms. Nixon at Silas, they had an exchange up there. And every little community, there'd be somewhere that Johnson could put in a phone, and then they had contact with other people. But we were all glad when we got the phones. I will remember the first one we got, we were living over at the farm. We were that much nearer Pringles, so we had better service there. It was a twisted phone. And everybody would call and talk about the news and tell about the families and so on. So Millry has grown, and a lot of us have grown with it, and a lot of us have gone. And but I can remember so many people that lived. There's very few houses here now standing that were here when I first moved out here in 1929. This house out here, the Brown House, I face out, and that house up there was built in 29, and all of the houses around there were built either since then, and old ones. They replaced a lot of old ones, and a lot of old homes have been torn down and gone.
What do you remember about the bank?
We had a bank right out here on the corner, and I remember...
In front of the city hall?
Yeah, yes, right across the street on the corner there.
Millry Citizens Bank.
Millry Citizens Bank, and it was just an individual bank. I don't remember now who the stockholders and people were, but it was, everybody used it, and of course when the bank holiday came and Roosevelt was there in his early years, a lot of people lost some money there, but the little banks broke everywhere. But it was real convenient to have the bank there. We had Dennis had an office there. Dr. Grimes lived down in the Franklin area, built an office there, and he had married one named Susie Cohen's daughter, the people spoke about. And so he was a dentist here, and Dr. Woody Knight had been the dentist here, but he was educated for a dentist, but he didn't like it, and so he quit dental work and went to sawmill business, and he had a commissary out on this lot, I think, at that time. And then he sold out to Mr. Grimes, and Grimes was the dentist for a while, and then Dr. Blunt, he later went to Mobile, and Dr. Blunt was the dentist here then until he retired and passed away. And we had, sometime later than that, we had another doctor move here a few years ago. I forgot who that doctor was, that guy lived here. So we had two doctors here at one time. Dr. Jim had a little clinic here in town. Some people came there for minor things.
Any questions?
Been about 30 or something.
29 or 30.
Yeah.
The bank came in 1922.
Yes.
So I've got canceled checks way back there. Well, I'm Emma Brown, Nash Petcher.
And you have a business here in
I
town.
was born accidentally in Mobile, supposed to have been on the way to Covington. Dr. Blunt, I'm the only one that Dr. Blunt didn't deliver in my family. And my earliest recollection of Millry was getting in the wagon at Covington and putting the quilts in the wagon and coming to Millry to the stores and come to shop. And oftentimes we'd have different families with us. The wagon would be full of the neighbors that want to come to Millry too. And it was quite an outing for a child to get in the wagon with a lot of kids, and it's a 5-mile drive to Millry. And I can remember the different stores that we had. Yes, we brought things to sell and change, barter in the stores. We always had plenty of everything on the farm.
Just traded in the
What
store?
money was, but we had We had lots of food. I used to go fishing with smoked ham, and after I left home and married, I discovered that there was soup lines in the country and people were hungry, and I was thinking, you know, all the good food that we had and grew up with. But I remember the dirt streets in Millry, and I remember the old swimming hole at Healing Springs, and for 10 cents you could go over there and swim, but if you got out of the swim hole and got dressed, you had to pay another 10 cents. So when the church would have a dinner on the ground, and usually it was over at Healing Springs, I think the worst licking I ever got was I stayed in my bathing suit all day so I could swim anytime I wanted to. And I went up to the lunch table in my bathing suit. I was a kid, you know. And
Did you have your own suit? Did you rent?
no, I borrowed a Marion suit. Her mother wouldn't let her swim on Sunday. And I remember Marion sitting over on the side of the swimming pool with daggers in her eyes, and I'm having a good time in her bathing suit. Centered I was. But there was a lot of good people in Millry, and I have wonderful memories of all of Millry. And obviously I came back, and it's my roots.
And you have a business here now?
I now have an art gallery where I paint every day and sell my paintings. Recently I've had a workshop, and several people around have attended the workshop and are now painting on their own. Sylvia's one of them, and Marion is now involved in painting, and we intend to have a workshop again in the fall. And, she's been painting. I was in New Hampshire for a week, and she stayed there and painted the whole week while I was gone. I was really surprised and glad.
Thank you. Yeah, when did you and Dr. Fletcher?
We got married in 1990.
Okay. From 1990?
Yes, we celebrated our 6th year in February.
This is Dr. Fletcher.
I run, but my great-great-grandpa, Elisha Simpson.
Who are you?
I'm Simeon G. Daniels. My great-great-grandfather, Elisha Simpson, came down here, I think it was right on the edge of Mill Creek and Briar Creek where they come together. He wrote in his record that he was on the waters of Senegal on the Briar Creek where they come together. And the road at that time, and I found this on there lately, run along the creek going towards St. Stephen's. It was following the level, and it was in Mr. Brewer's stuff that he brought down there, you remember? He showed a map going that road going that way, and this other map going, this other street going by Arthur Brown's place was later come. It was probably about 1850. But anyway, great-great-grandpa came in here with 3 children and his wife. And there's not a Simpson by name in the county that I know of. They all disappeared, but there's all kind of kinfolks around there. There's no here. This man has got a little touch of it in the Armstrongs and what have you, but the name is gone. And now, he came about 1810, and he bought 40 acres, and he bought another 40 later, and this owned it up. And in 1830 something, he applied for a pension from the Revolutionary War, and he got it, and all that record is available. I mean, you can find all that stuff, and what I'm trying to tell you is things that you can find. But now the town of Millry, my mother said there was a fort here in 1812 when they had this Indian war. There was a fenced-off area with trees planted in the ground, you know, a palisade around it, or whatever you call it, to keep the Indians out and where the people could shoot through the hole and not be shot back. Now, I don't know where the thing was. I have an idea down here about where Kimbrough's store was when I was a child, like where the water pump was.
Yeah.
Somebody was talking about the...
Had to be near water.
Yeah, and I think there was a grist mill, a cotton gin,
Both,
all of them together.
yeah,
Somewhere in that area, and I don't know where the fort was. I never heard anybody else mention it.
I never either.
But I do know that John Powell Simpson, my great-grandfather, now that's another step down, he went to that fort in 1812. Family stayed there during the Indian uprising and stayed away from the place out there in safety. Now, have you ever heard it mentioned, you've taught school here?
I never have.
I've always heard it was behind the school, sort of where the football field is, there, where the
It
court was.
it may be.
It had to be near water.
It had to be near water.
Well, it's not too far from the water there.
No.
And as I was saying, I'm Annie Simpson Daniels' son. My mother was S.B. Simpson's sister. And Sally Knight, sister. And there was a whole bunch of them, 9 or 10 children. And to talk about the road paving, I was interested in that. In September of 1940, Mama woke me up and said, go to Jim Norton at Silas, and he's going to take you to get the doctor for your sister to have a baby. So we come down this road to Millry, and that joker drove 100 miles an hour on a dirt road. And I tell you, I felt like getting on the floor. But he made it down here and back, and the doctor couldn't come, but he finally got one from Butler. And, but that road was paved the early part of 41, I would think, because the war would have interfered after it started. And the old stuff was about what I was going to tell you now. Got up about 1890, there was a hanging out here on what kind of creek wood? Jamminus hanging out there. And some of my Simpson kinfolks had to leave and go across to Texas and Louisiana and places to not be involved in the party that they were going to try, for hanging. And some of them never did come back, and several of them didn't. So the Simpson family was important for a while, but they soon passed on out. Jackie.
David Carpenter.
David McDavid Carpenter.
And he's also my great-granddad.
He has hundreds, if not thousands, of offspring.
I'm Walter Warren, it's known as Book Warren, and I've lived here practically all my life. When I was a baby, I lived right here, right where